Ladies and gentlemen, this is Charles Lugassy on Radio Shalom, and today we have with us the president of the Canadian Jewish News, who, as you know, has closed the newspaper, unfortunately, and everybody in the community is in despair and very disappointed. Mr. Carr, good day.
Good day.
Mr. Carr, the way I understand it is that the almost only newspaper deserving the whole Jewish community in Canada has closed its doors. And let's try to understand if this is something that is following a general trend all over the world, that the newspaper, the paper itself, the print, is going bankrupt all over. We just learned that there is another newspaper who has 80 years of existence in the States, just closed also right after you make your announcement. And it looks as though the print is going nowhere because of the internet. Is this one of the reasons why you had to make this announcement?
Well, let me first of all correct what you said. I didn't close the paper. The board of directors, which is an independent body of a not-for-profit corporation, made that decision. But let me answer your question. It's been known now for some few years that print newspapers and print magazines have been losing hand over fist advertisers and subscribers. And for instance, over the past 4 years, in the United States, billions, that's with a B, not an M, billions of dollars of advertising has been lost by papers. And yes, all over, every print newspaper is feeling a very, very big bite. And yes, several of them have closed, and several of them are teetering on the brink of closing. And then to your specific question, that is the basis upon which the CJN itself had to cease publication at the end of June.
And is this something you had foreseen?
It's something that, going back a couple of years, we realized that there were ensuing losses. We started a couple of years ago to investigate the situation, both with respect to the CJN itself and with respect to print newspapers across the board. We had a very, very detailed survey done of our readers, which included subscribers who no longer paid, readers who never subscribed, and it was broken down into age groups. And we also had a separate survey of advertisers, both in Toronto and Montreal, both advertisers in the two places and readers in the two places. And we saw these things happening, and we saw consistent losses over the past little while. It was when we came to the conclusion that our reserves were just about sufficient to look after our staff, our dedicated staff, that we made the decision that instead of dragging along and continuing to lose money, which would leave the staff high and dry if we entered into a bankruptcy situation, that we owed them, as well as the community, of course, but we owed them our prime attention, and it was only right that we should call a halt at a time when we could pay them for all their years of service. We could pay them proper and reasonable severance.
Why did you stop it now, meaning at the end of June? Any specific reason why you choose this period?
It's that specific reason that I've just mentioned. If we continued past June, we would, with continuing losses, not have the funds to look after our staff.
And what did you try to do in order to salvage the situation?
Well, we had tried all kinds of steps to
For
cut
example,
expenses. Well, we cut substantial expenses. We also found ourselves in a situation where subscriptions were dropping. The Toronto Federation used to purchase subscriptions for many of its donors. It stopped this current year, I should say, and we ran a campaign to try and get those people who were receiving the newspaper with subscriptions from Federation to switch to being paid subscribers themselves. That was a very, very good campaign. It was a very difficult campaign to do, but we found that only about a third of those who were receiving the paper from the subscriptions put up by Federation have in fact subscribed personally.
While in Montreal, they were still sending the paper to the people who subscribe to Federation, right?
Well, in Montreal, it's an entirely different situation. Yes, we have Federation in Montreal, which has continued to purchase subscriptions. I should say we have about 500 pay direct subscribers in Montreal, but the Montreal Federation has paid for subscriptions, but I should tell you that the amount that is being paid doesn't even cover the postage.
So you were losing money as it looks. And the question that people are asking nowadays is how or is the Federation CGA is going to help? And what I received this morning is a letter from David Cape stating that the Federation will do its utmost in order to try to either salvage the situation or try to find any other options in order to maintain a decent and newspaper in the Jewish community. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yes, I received that letter also. I should tell you that members of the board of directors who live in Montreal have, I know, been in touch with Federation, and we are hopeful, not necessarily from the Federation sources. We are, as a board of directors, looking into in great detail what options we have, because not only do we want to continue with our digital edition, we are aware fully of the fact that our readership comprises people probably mostly over age 50, and many of them do not have access to the digital edition. So we are in the midst of, and have been always, trying to find ways and means of commencing to republish in print on some basis that will be viable and will be supported by members of the community, directly or indirectly. That is our prime aspect. I think everybody knows that the Canadian Jewish News is a not-for-profit company. Nobody is a proprietor. We have always looked upon ourselves as if we were, quote, trustees, unquote, for the community, and nobody on the board of directors gains financially or in any other way. So we are casting about very, very carefully and with a lot of attention to find alternate ways of continuing on some reasonable and appropriate basis.
My question is, and most of the people are wondering, were you during all these years getting any help from the Jewish community? I'm talking about financial help, direct financial help.
No, as I said, first of all,
only through subscriptions, those subscriptions that you have.
Yeah, you have to understand we're not a charity, and therefore we cannot give charitable receipts, and we have not reached out to anybody in the community to seek any financial assistance. The only assistance we have had from the community, indeed, is the purchase of subscriptions by both federations.
So basically, it was supported by independent investors, private people.
It was when the newspaper was taken over some 42 years ago from a private individual, Mr. Nuremberger, who ran the paper as a business. It was bought by the current corporation, the Canadian Jewish News, which was then headed by the late Ray D. Wolf and several other community members from Toronto and Montreal. And financing was all done, if you will, internally for that purpose. And for many years we made a profit, which was never our intention. It is not a profit-making venture. And in accordance with the agreements that we had entered into with the Federation in Toronto and the Federation in Montreal, if we had any surpluses, those surpluses would go for charitable purposes in consultation with both federations. And indeed, after consultation, during the times when the paper was successful, we endowed a program at the University of Toronto in Jewish Studies, which supports every year a fellow in postgraduate studies at the Jewish Studies at the University of Toronto.
So as it stands now, the only hope that we can have is that you will eventually maintain the online service. Is that correct?
Our hope is a little bit more than that. Nobody should take from this that this is going to be happening, but it is our hope that we will, one way or the other, find some way to continue the digital edition and expand it, but also find some way of producing a print edition in an appropriate manner. That is our hope, and we indeed are having another meeting on Sunday to explore that even further. So while this cannot be looked upon as a commitment, we are all working assiduously to try and bring that to a satisfactory conclusion.
One last point that I would like to raise with you concerning the edition from Montreal. Was it your intention at any given time or in the foreseeable future to increase the French portion in order to try to reach more the Sephardic part of Montreal that are French-speaking?
We've reached out because, as you have known, if you've read the paper, we do have articles in French. We felt it was very important to meet the Sephardi community in that regard. The amount of editorial content of the Montreal paper, just like the Toronto paper, depends very substantially on advertising. We have a ratio of advertising to editorial, or rather the other way around. Our editorial content is related to the amount of advertising we can get to support it. Unfortunately, the Montreal edition has never paid for itself. So I cannot tell you that we had intended to expand the amount of French language content in the paper. We would love to. We would love to reach many, many, many more Sephardim, but that's all a question of economics.
So it depends on the advertising that you will get from the Sephardim all themselves. Is that is it a correct assumption?
No, it would depend upon the quantity and value of the advertising we would get in the Montreal edition from whatever source they were. If it's from the community, the Sephardi community, the Sephardi business community, plus the non-Jewish community, in terms of normal kind of advertising that you hope you obtain for a newspaper that's published in the city.
Mr. Donald Carr, president of the Canadian Jewish News, today you gave us a little bit more of hope because everyone thought that it was the end of it. And today you just gave us some hope that, first of all, the the online edition may remain, and that even a print, partially print edition will be maintained. So let's hope that things will improve, and that we will be able to have this newspaper that is enjoyed by many, because that's almost the only link that the people have in the Jewish community in order to know what goes on, and have a link with other people between Montreal and Toronto, and in Montreal itself. That's the best way to stay put with our neighbors and our Jewish co-religionaires, and to know what goes on. So, Mr. Carr, I would like to thank you very much for this interview, and hope everything will go well.
Thank you. I share, and the board of directors share that hope. That does not mean it will happen, but hope springs eternal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Charles Lugassy interviewing Mr. Donald Carr, president of the Canadian Jewish News. Have a good day.